morning, everyone. This is the earliest I've been up all year, but it is a good morning indeed. I really enjoyed that presentation. And just to introduce myself, my name is Sophia Shi. I am the co-president of Vines, which is the undergraduate student entrepreneurship club. I am a senior, and I'm graduating in May this year, and I'll be going into consulting before I move back into the startup space. It is my distinct privilege to introduce our next keynote speaker, Kendra Kawala. Kendra is class of 2013 at Vanderbilt, and she is the COO and co-founder of Maker Wine, which is a venture-backed, direct-to-consumer canned wine company. Maker Wine has raised funds from some of the best investors in Silicon Valley, entertainment, business, and sports, and it is radically changing the way that we experience wine. Kendra is an undergraduate at Vandy and went to MBA at Stanford, where she was bit by the startup bug and put down roots in Maine County of California. She recently hosted a virtual wine tasting with the Vandy Alumni Association, where she received excellent feedback on the taste, packaging, and overall experience of her wine. I had some yesterday, and I would say that is not at all an overstatement. So it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Kendra.
Thank you so much. All right. Hello, everyone. It is so great to be here. I firstly want to thank Stacy and Michael and the Center for Entrepreneurship for having me. It is an absolute pleasure. As was mentioned, my name is Kendra. I am co-founder and COO of Maker Wine Company. And I want to share just briefly a little bit about my journey starting my very first company. Unlike Mark, I have not sold or exited any companies yet. And in fact, I'm still very early in my first entrepreneurial journey. What has been instrumental for me in this journey is reframing my entrepreneurial path through a creative lens. And so today, in addition to sharing with you a bit about Maker, I hope that I can also help to dispel the myth that there is one founder archetype or one way to build a business. And as much as recipes and frameworks are incredibly valuable and inspirational, I want to encourage all of us to really put on our creative thinking hats and get crafty when it comes to startups. So what we do at Maker is we make premium canned wine that comes directly from best-in-class wineries all over wine country. It's a very novel business model on the supply side, and on the demand side, we go direct to consumer, shipping Blue Maker boxes all over the country to 48 states today. How we got here was not always the most obvious, and a lot of those ideas were not clear to people at the beginning. And so today, before we dive in, I want to do one quick activity just to get us like moving and brain juices flowing and creative. So if everyone can stand up in the room, and if you're at home, stand up at your desk or at work, and we're just gonna do a little like shake it out, a little jig, just get moving. Yeah, oh, I like that move. Okay, perfect. It's early, right? Like, yeah. Never too early for wine, but awesome. Okay, you guys look good. Everyone looks more awake. Now we can get started. Thank you. All right. So this is a little bit about who I am on a human level. I was born and raised in Chicago to a family where I never heard the words entrepreneur or startup. It wasn't, bad by design, but it was just not something that I had exposure to. And even in coming to college at Vanderbilt, now a couple of years ago, similar to Stacy, I did not see entrepreneurship, startups, or even ever hear the words venture capital while on campus. And so today, it's become incredibly important to me to help cultivate this ecosystem and help other people on their own startup journey. What you can see here is after Vanderbilt, I too went into consulting. I spent 4 years at Huron Consulting Group, working alongside some of my classmates from Vanderbilt in healthcare and hospital systems. And I found out that I really had a niche for sales and also for thinking differently, creatively, if you will. At times, it got me into a little bit of trouble in consulting, but very quickly I figured out that I wanted to have my own path. And so this is how I went from being what I used to lovingly refer to myself as a business robot to now having the most incredible business partner, co-founder in wine, and truly pursuing my passion. So here's this, heads up, there's gonna be a lot of pictures in this show. So this is an image of me and my co-founder, Sarah, at one of our very first presentations. You can see we have a trifold, we have some cans there that we're gonna come back to, and we're very much starting out. About 2 years later, we were so proud to make it into Forbes, to raise money from some of the best investors across business and sports and entertainment, and today to be changing how the wine industry works. So how we got from 0 to 1 is what we are going to talk about today. All right, so no talk would be complete without some pithy takeaways. So this is what I have for all of you. We're gonna start by thinking about creativity in a few different ways. We're going to look inward first at how do we come up with ideas? How do we figure out what is the right entrepreneurial path for us? And how do we build a team that aligns with that vision? We're then going to talk about baby steps, where you start, and how you can pressure test your ideas and really get them out into the world. And then lastly, we will wrap up by talking a little bit about courage. No creative can do what they do in the world without having the courage to put their ideas and get feedback and iterate. So with that, I cannot take credit for Know Thyself, of course. I need to credit our friend Socrates. And the reason that I think knowing thyself is so incredibly important is a startup or a company is a direct reflection of its founders in its earliest days. The strengths and the weaknesses of the co-founding team, their interests, what they like to work on and don't like to work on. And so by being aware and very intentional about that up front, you can design a company or a product that really speaks to what you care about, what you want to see in the world, and who you like to build alongside. These are a few of the questions that I might consider asking myself if I were going back a few years at the beginning of my journey. And they're really meant to be just kind of inspiration. What are your values? What drives or motivates you? When do you do your best work? And lastly, what do you care deeply enough about that even if you were to pursue building it for years, if it was not ultimately successful, you would still be so deeply thrilled and satisfied because it's that important to you? I think that it's very important to have that kind of connection to your creation. A little bit about us as a founding team, kind of applying this lens. Sarah and I come from two very different backgrounds. My background is in healthcare consulting with a focus in sales and operations, and I really liked working in regulated industries and fragmented spaces and being able to bring just a little bit of tech to places that hadn't seen it yet. And so if you hang with me, healthcare and wine actually do have quite a few similarities in that regard. But what was also very important to me was mission and impact. And of course that is true in healthcare, but we've really built that, incorporated it into what we do at Maker. We consider ourselves a mission-driven wine company. My co-founder, Sarah, is the yin to my yang. Her background was in digital marketing by day. She was one of the best digital marketers in the Bay Area, working at Eventbrite, with food and beverage companies in their earliest days. And on the side, she had all of these side hustles. She was a home brewer, you can see there. She's helping out a local brewery. She ran an underground supper club, doing more than 100 ticketed paired dinners for people all over San Francisco. And Sarah was really just this person that encapsulated craft and connection. And candidly, initially I just wanted to be her friend. And so that was how we came together as wine buddies. And as we got to know each other and we started to explore this idea and why we both felt so drawn to the wine industry, we came at it from different angles, right? Sarah valuing craft and connection, and for me, really wanting to make an impact and a difference in a positive way. And we were able to bring these two things together to bear in a company to make something that was truly net new. So that is what we are going to walk through today. All right, so baby steps. An artist, as you all know, does not sit and look at a blank canvas for days, weeks, and months before they get started. In fact, they start by picking up their paintbrush, making a few strokes, maybe experimenting with color, seeing how it turns out, and getting feedback from the world on their creation. It's an incredibly iterative process, and one that takes a lot of time and both, looking inwards and then kind of looking outwards. Super basic framework. Mark put me to shame here. But at its highest level, when we think about creating companies, creating products, it is all following the exact same framework. You start with this idea for a creation, you test it, you get feedback on it, and then you iterate. And so this is what we did, and I'm going to share a few different ways that we did this at Maker. The first is, being a craft canned wine company, we wanted to make cans premium, and we also wanted them to tell a story. We felt very strongly that the story of the maker was central to everyone's wine experience and that people were craving more connection to where their product came from. So what I'm going to show you next is version 1 of our can prototype. Please do not laugh. We printed this on printer paper at the library, and you can see that we're testing, we have a working name, Cab Labs. We're testing things like color, and you see varietal and vintage and AVA or regional designate on this wine. That's pretty unique for cans, so that was something we were testing. We're also testing putting signatures on the cans. You can see E.B. White's signature on the Chardonnay there. But what this helped us do is understand what people were drawn to, what spoke to them and why. And we would literally take these cans, or our next version of the cans, and stand outside of Trader Joe's, approaching people leaving the wine aisle, asking them, what do you think about this can? Would you buy it? What do you like? What do you dislike, right? And at the time, we were the crazy can ladies. This is just to round it out. This is what our initial first 3 wines looked like. You can see that from these learnings, we were applying things like design and story. In fact, each of our cans now has a different design that corresponds to the story of the maker. We also, learned which elements were most important, and we decided to highlight the signature, the authentic signature and winery name on each and every can that we do. So again, very unique model. It's almost co-branded with Maker and then the winery partners brand beneath ours. Here's a couple pictures of what this testing looked like. It involved a lot of drinking wine and hanging out with our friends, so not that bad, and also why it's important to pick a space that you love. And you can see here, we were studying other people's cans. We were tasting canned wine and really trying to gather as much feedback as we could. This is, of course, physical product design, so we are testing and iterating before we create the physical good. That's different than software SaaS and digital, where you can put up a landing page and keep revving, right? So this is an example of one of our earliest landing pages. And here we're just testing, who is our customer? Where do we find them? What messaging speaks to them? And we're running super cheap Facebook ad testing to help inform this. So again, just trying to help you understand some of the tactics for that testing and iterating. It can take on a lot of different shapes and forms based on what you're creating and what kind of feedback you need. Once we landed on our initial can design and they looked amazing, we were thrilled, we went on to get our license, make a website. But guess what? We're a direct-to-consumer company, and we needed a box. And we did not really anticipate how much would go into designing a box. And so for about a month and a half, we put the launch of our company on hold and became almost full-time box designers. I pulled from my experience in consulting and ran an RFP process with box manufacturers, and we had them compete for our business. We created 6 criteria that we wanted this box to meet. This included things like it needed to protect the cans. You can see Sarah there doing drop testing with cans in a box. We dropped hundreds of boxes and dented thousands of cans. We wanted it to be scalable. So we today have a 6, 12, and 24 pack size. We wanted a design that we could really easily expand. We also wanted something that was beautiful and told a story as you walked through the unboxing. Where this led us was to a very novel box design. Again, we delayed launching our company almost 2 months while we did this. And there might have been a world in which we picked a craft box and said, we're just gonna start shipping product, but our values of quality and transparency, we really felt that every touch through to the smallest box design needed to reflect our values and what we were building. So you can see in our box, we have kind of the story element. You open it up and it says wine sealed delivered. We have handles on either side so that shipping carriers or people, if you're taking it on a picnic or to a party, you can easily grab and go. And you can see there that we also made it scalable. So we have, that's a 6-pack box on top of one of our 24-pack boxes. And my personal opinion, I think we nailed it on they are beautiful. So that is kind of the second phase of our design process. And this is all happening before we launch the company, before we have product in market. We're getting all this feedback and using it to inform our product design, our business model. So like I mentioned, it was the end of 2019. We had our license to sell wine in California only. You can see there, I filed for our liquor license myself at my parents' house. I had to talk to my neighbors because you post a sign for 30 days and there's a comment period. And they live on a residential street. You know, there's some eyebrows raised as to why they were starting a wine company. But that got through. And you can see there, that is Sarah, myself, and one of our winemakers, Colleen, on our very first canning day. This is an incredibly collaborative process that we have designed where we actually can on-site at the winery, and we essentially let the winemakers do what they do best. They finish their finest wine, they prepare the juice. We do the label and storytelling, and we work with a supply chain, a mobile canning company, and it all comes together on these really fun canning days all over California and soon to be the West Coast. So, again, January 2020, we have the box, we have the license, we have the website. We are ready to launch. But then, a global pandemic struck. And you can imagine, we had been testing and imagining this business model for almost 2 years. And the business model was driving to direct-to-consumer, this online shipping experience, but it was really augmented by wholesale, by selling wine into stores and restaurants. That is traditionally the trodden path to building a big wine company. Overnight, our entire pipeline of restaurant, concert activations, and grocery store sales evaporated. No retailer would take a meeting with an existing brand, let alone a new brand, for at least a year into the pandemic. So one of our main channels, in fact, the channel that was essentially the easiest to launch and get traction on, disappeared overnight. So we had to go back to the drawing board and again get creative. And I loved what Mark said earlier about after you have the physical product, you're not done testing and iterating. On the go-to-market side of things, you are constantly learning and adjusting, and the market had changed for us in a really big way. So one of the things, a few sleepless nights later, that we came up with was really trying to tailor our experience and what we built to speak to that remote world and people being stuck at home. And what we came up with very quickly in about April of 2020 was virtual wine tastings and corporate gifting. We had this product that was ready to be shipped to people's homes. It included the story, it was premium, and we were really racking our brains for how we could get it out into the world. So you can see here we came up with some collateral, basically overnight, wine from home, let's have a Zoom happy hour. And we started putting that into our boxes and offering these kind of branded experiences. You can also see there the Vanderbilt alumni tasting that I did a couple of weeks ago. I would be remiss to not mention how much the Commodore community has helped me launch this business. It was not just this virtual wine tasting, but almost every alumni chapter group in California did virtual wine tastings with our company in our launch year. And those people went on to introduce me to their companies, their charities, and our virtual event business grew by word of mouth. And this was ultimately how we launched the business in 2020. In fact, it caught on so much that by August, we were on track to sell out of wine. What was previously our biggest dream felt like a nightmare. What were we going to do? And essentially, we made the tough decision to cap our sales. And as the head of sales and an entrepreneur that had been working at this for years, it was devastating. But again, knowing your values, wine is an agricultural product. It's only harvested and ready once per year. And August is not the time to go out and make new wine. In fact, it's the time when everyone's out in the fields picking the grapes and making juice to be fermented. And so it was about the worst time possible to run out of supply. But we took care of our best customers, our handful of stores, our Can Club members is what our subscription is called. And we got through the end of the year to our next production cycle in January of 2021. All right, so then moving on to our third and final kind of motto here. So shoot your shots. I purposefully wanted to make this plural. I love the shoot your shot phrase, but I think it's really important to think about how many shots on we take and to just remember that a huge part of the game is taking shots on. These are two of my friends and former classmates, Steve and Festus, on the court during a game in 2011 when they shocked and beat Kentucky. You can see here, Steve and Festus are celebrating after undoubtedly, which was a surprising shot that went in, and they're well on their way to upsetting one of the best teams in the country. I love this picture, and it's been so inspirational to see my classmates and what they've gone on to do, because it just really hammers home how important it is to put yourself out there and take that chance. A couple of ways that we have put ourselves out there, some of which have panned out and some of which have not, I would love to share with you. The first is in pitching our company. Many of you, if you are thinking about starting a company or if you have started a company, you might look at this and know exactly what's going on here. We are making application videos, we're in pitch rooms. We were trying to share our concept with everyone that we could. And at the time, we were trying to get all the free money that we could, right? Small grants, little things that would help us along the way to test our ideas. The picture on the left is a kind of funny story. This was our biggest demo day ever. One of our investors is a firm called Pear VC, and they run an incubator program and a big demo day out in San Francisco. This is my co-founder, Sarah, and I pitching to 400 of the best VCs across San Francisco. After that, we got so many meetings, we learned a lot, and we raised $0. And it was kind of devastating. We had never, we'd been pitching and presenting on Maker together for years, and we got great grades in school, right? And everyone had loved our presentation and our ideas, but we couldn't figure out why they didn't want to give us money, right? I thought that was, what they were there to do. And so, we learned a hard lesson, and we put our heads back down and kept building. Actually, we didn't need the money, and by not having it, it really forced us to, scarcity breeds innovation is one of Sarah's favorite phrases. It really forced us to think critically about what were the most important things for us to invest in and test. Another example of a time that we put ourselves out there where it really did pan out was via a cold LinkedIn message. I already mentioned we're a direct-to-consumer brand and an e-commerce company. We built our site on essentially a Shopify-like version for wine. But very quickly, we were hitting roadblocks, and we wanted to have this unique experience in wine that nobody else had, and we just couldn't do it. So one day, I was sitting on my couch on a Saturday, watching videos about thought leaders in e-commerce, and I came across this guy.